Okay, everybody good there?
Appears to be.
Audrey,
Yep.
Audrey ready to roll?
She's signaling yes.
Okay, sounds good. Well, hello, everybody. This is Susan Slack. I'm the town moderator. This is our annual candidates night. We're doing things a little differently this year, I regret to say. But it's been a year of doing things differently. So we're going to try this as a Zoom meeting. Some of you have emailed the town clerk with some questions. And we also have the ability to answer questions if you use the chat function at the bottom of your screen, and you could write a question in there. So we'll try to keep an eye on that and see if there are questions. What we usually do is have all the candidates who agree to come running for town office come to the municipal building in the meeting room, and we give each one a chance to introduce themselves and say how they're, what they're interested in about the position they're running for, and then have questions and answers. So we're doing it a little bit differently this year. And so I hope this works as well as can be expected. I regret to say that Lenny is not going to join us tonight. He's not into the Zoom experience and doesn't feel like that affords a good way to ask questions and get answers and have a face-to-face give and take. So he's decided not to participate. Sorry that has happened, but we'll go forward and see how we do this evening. So I guess Mike Cahalan is the only selectman candidate in the room. So I will put it to you, Mike, the way we usually start these events. You're running for selectman. Can you give us a little background about yourself and why you're running for re-election?
Sure. It's always the simplest, easiest question. Everybody's going to ask it. And it's always somewhat difficult to answer for some reason. But sticking on the municipal side of things, to tell you about myself, I have a long history at this point, over a decade, in being involved with the town at multiple levels, starting off with the Historic District Commission, having a little bit to do with the master plan, a very little role there, and moving on to some endeavors with the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Adjustment. At some point, I was vice chair of the boards, and I chaired for a while the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and attended a lot of the town meetings and selectmen's meetings, stayed pretty active and involved in what was taking place. And I was an avid student of the programs that are afforded to municipal and elected officials. So I went to a lot of law lecture series and budget committee trainings. So budget trainings, I should say. So I've had a lot to do with the town, and I've had a pretty good overall view of what wasn't really working for us, infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. And so at some point, I just felt that maybe instead of being one of the critics in the audience, I'd try to step up and see if I could add a positive effect to the town. And I think I've done that. And I think we have a lot of things in the works that I started in my first and second year and followed through. And they're in full swing, a lot of these things, culverts, bridges, roads. And I'm looking to finalize those projects and keep trying to make a positive difference. So that's the goal.
Okay, so I will start with some questions that were emailed to the town clerk. There was a notice on the website asking people if they had questions for tonight to email them to Deanna. She has forwarded them to me. Some people have asked one question and some people have asked many questions. So I'll start with the first ones we received. And this is from, I'm not sure who. Oh, I think Dave Strauss. Mike, what have been your biggest accomplishments over the last 3 years?
Well, we have a lot of accomplishments, so that's kind of a long list. One of the things I oversaw the bridge repairs on the Elm Street Bridge, which is one of our bigger, pricier bridges. So keeping that from the point of decline that it was in, and having that be completed, that was a big one. We've got some road projects that started off in the first year, not really super great, wasn't happy with that, but we recovered nicely. We did another 1.25 miles of the road. And when we overlaid, R&D paving was able to shape the road that was previously done into a 2.5-inch crown. We've got a couple of guys from Pike Industries that live in town that have been doing this stuff for like 30+ years. And they signed off on the way it went. They were not real happy in the first phase, but they really like what we've been accomplished since then. So the road projects, Pine River Road, we had an emergency situation and I oversaw the repair on that. Chuck Fuller helped with the emergency permit. He and I teamed up on that, and I was able to get out there and oversee that project, and we got the road open in pretty short order. That's a big one. Molly Philbrook Culvert, which would wash out, that's cost us tens of thousands of dollars. And these things have been out there for years. So getting that done was another one that I oversaw with the culvert installer certification. So we didn't have to spend for engineering. And I have overseen now in about a 2-year period, about 40 or 41 culvert installations that I was able to put in to the state. So that's through a certification program that I went through. I have the Snow Road Bridge, which unfortunately a lot of people have some misinformation about on the concept that it's a wooden bridge. It's really not. It's 50 tons of steel, 30 tons of concrete, galvanized steel stringers holding up the deck, and an engineered wood deck that is a glue laminated product. And that gets overlaid with a waterproof membrane. And then a regular road base goes on top of that. So the only other wood in this whole thing besides that deck is the timber rails, the guardrails that are on the bridge. And that's where the bridge actually gets its name. It's descriptive, not factual, that it's a timber bridge. It's a really solid bridge. And that bridge, I was able to bring in $250,000 in a grant. And I've totaled $327,500 in grants myself. And we have some other projects that are going on this year that we're going to be chasing grants. Bailey Road culvert, which is going to become a bridge, is failing. And we got grant money for that. And the engineering company's overseeing the designs. They're coming forward with that the end of May. And we'll have a price point to go back and file for more grant money. I'm thinking that grant's going to range about $140,000 if we get awarded to it, to that one. And we have heard that some infrastructure money through the Governor's Council might be made available. So I'll be looking to chase that. But honestly, that's just the tip of it. We've got a special revenue fund at the transfer station that I kind of wanted to push that in. We got that. I think the first year we've put about $25,000 into an account just on the revenue stream that's been generated. Previously, we weren't getting any interest on banking on our money. We paid maintenance fees into the accounts. We paid for checks. All the checks that we would get in the office had to be physically driven to the bank. That has all changed. We get free basic everything and we get interest. So year one, even though interest rates are really down, we've got like $12,000 of interest and additional savings that probably are another $5,000 or so. So there's a lot of operational changes, like in the transfer station, police department, bringing Joe Duchesne in as a chief who retired, and we don't have him full-time. And the benefit of that is savings on medical plans and retirement systems. So revamping the police department with technology, getting them out of on the road now, and we're able to put more officers' hours out on the road for patrolling. Our patrols have stepped up just exponentially. So there's a lot of things. So that's a bunch of them, I guess.
Well, we have a lot more questions, so
Okay.
we can move on to a few others. I'll ask one more of Dave Strauss's, and then I'll move some of the other questions and come back to Dave's if we have time. So this next question is, if reelected, what are the steps you will take to ensure that the town stays in budget?
Well, a lot of that is through some grants to help us keep the money aspect down. The other board members allowed me to work a lot on the budget with Mr. Strauss this year. And what we were able to accomplish was actually not having a budget increase, but a decrease short of the ambulance contract. We knew that contract wasn't, we weren't, our percentage wasn't actually accurate. So we knew we were going to have a bump there. But other than that, we were able to keep everything pretty much under budget. And then when we factored in the warrant articles, we're funding unassigned fund balances because we've become very solvent. There's a lot of financial stuff that's been benefits that we've been working on and able to accomplish. So we're offsetting $110,000 in warrant article expenses, which would normally be a taxation. And we're doing that because some of these projects I mentioned came in under budget. So we're actually going to have $18,000 of a reduction in cost going forward on the town meeting on your taxes. And we've structured the tax rate in such a way that we have revenue streams that we can provide back this year that will probably even reduce our budget unless we see some increases we're not expecting. One of those is an agreement that I was worked with Mr. Roberge from Avatar and negotiating a utility settlement that had been plaguing us. So that was that probably would have cost us $300,000. We negotiated it down to $190,000, no interest, because they were trying to compound interest for 5 years that this thing's been going on. And what we did was we paid that in lieu of taxation in a percentage, $63,000 and change a year. That comes due this year in July. So after that, we're going to see that $63,000 come off the tax rate as well as the $18,000 that we'll be experiencing a benefit. So I see our staying in budget because I think we're managing the budget well. We've made a lot of operational changes that should allow us to do that. And I think next year our budget won't have an additional effect on taxes. If anything, I think the town's municipal tax rate stands a good chance of decreasing. And probably for the next 3 years, I think that the way I worked with DRA, Department of Revenue Administration, I had some, I'll call them a little more creative ideas than what we've been doing on how to stabilize the tax rate and be able to make the municipal tax rate not just flat stable, but really looks like we could probably show a reduction year after year unless we have a giant warrant article come through. So there's a lot there that we're working on.
All right, so I'll ask one more question and then see if there are any questions from people listening in. This question was emailed in from Jason Earl. The past year has been a changing one for the Board of Selectmen and for the townspeople. The unusual situation has served to highlight concerns about public access to meetings and right to know and transparency issues generally. Could each candidate for Board of Selectmen disclose and describe any existing or past relationships between themselves and the other members of the board on which they are seeking to serve? This could include family, business, social, or civic nonprofit relationships or involvements that may exist.
Well,
That's
oh,
so.
well, it's
Get the gist of that.
it's a small town. I don't think there's a board that I've ever served on where you don't have some familial knowledge with every member of that board. So to that end, I wouldn't say that my relationships extend any further to other members of the boards than in the past that all of us tend to share. I know that Tom Hart does some plowing for me. He takes a truck, goes out and does some plowing work in the winter. Tom's one of those guys who wants to just get out of the house somewhat. In no way is Tom beholden to me on that. If anything, I'd say it's the other way around. I can use an individual to drive a plow that's responsible and not going to go crashing and smashing and thrashing around, is conscientious. So that's the only relationship. And if Tom wanted to walk away, he doesn't get paid a lot of money. I'd be the one in the lurch. So I don't think it's me being in charge of Tom. Tom's in charge of that whole situation, is whatever that is to him. Other than that, that's about all there is to be disclosed that I can think of that's any more than the normal, friendly relationships that most of us tend to have on these boards.
Okay. I don't see any chat room questions, so I'll go on with questions that Deanna sent to me that she has received. And I don't know who this is from. So we usually like to know who's asking questions.
I'll take any and all questions, Susan. So I don't.
All right. Why do you want to be a selectman?
I think we covered that a little bit. I think I bring a certain, I have a few things that I think I do well. And again, I think the town was in trouble. Financially, the town was in trouble. The town audits will show you that from 2014, when we had some money, not a great amount of money, in the unassigned fund balance. And that's a real bellwether as to the health of the town. The following year in 15, we were $52,000 at the end of the year in the red in the unassigned fund balance, which is alarming. After that, the town rebounded to about 71 and then positive. And then in 2017, we ended again in the red, almost $10,000. I made a career of working in departments that struggled and managed to turn things around. I think that's kind of just my, if I have any gift, it's identifying those business situations that are floundering and being able to make them a little better. At the end of 2018, I was the hawk on the budgets and chasing our finances. We ended with about $135,000 to the good in the unassigned fund balance from being in the hole 10. In the following year, we were at $385,000. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be well over 600,000 when the audit's done for 2020, which we needed that solvency to carry the back taxes. That we have delinquent taxes that lapse, that are just lagging, and you got to pay your bills. So last year was the first year we were able to pay our bills through December without being dependent on the December tax bill. At least that's the first year it's in my time being involved here that I'm aware of that. So I think operationally, I bring a lot of things to the table where we've made some inroads, as I stated earlier. A lot of contract negotiations, like with waste management, that operational changes actually decreased in a time when with China closing down, costs went up. So yeah, I think we're doing good. If people vote their wallets. That's why I'm here, is to try to make us financially solvent and run well and accomplish good projects. And I think we're doing it. And again, I've got a lot of projects that were on my on my table. Sean does a lot of things. Chuck does a lot of things. And the things I have, there's a lot of these big projects are in process. And I've been tasked with overseeing those. And I think right now we're in the middle of those. I'd hate to walk away from them.
Okay. I keep checking the chat box. So if you folks have questions, it's easy to use the chat box. Just click on it and type in a question and hit send. And it'll show up on my screen, and I'll be happy to read the question. So I'll go back to one of Dave Strauss's question. In the next 3 years, what infrastructure and personnel issues do you see need to be addressed?
Okay, well, I think a lot of our personnel, the vacancies we've had have been filled. And if folks stay on board, we may not have any personnel issues to deal with. The police department is really well staffed. We have ex-police chiefs that are now working in other departments. One fellow, and is a sergeant there, who may actually become the chief there. We have another area police chief who works for us part-time. I think primarily he'll be a prosecutor because that's where his talents really are, in that area. We have just a deep bench. Lieutenant Ripley over in Ospey is on our force. Jamie Mullins, Bob King, Eric Diaz, Tyler Eldridge from Ospey. There's another gentleman we just hired from Wakefield. I feel terrible, I'm forgetting his name, but there's even more people on that. So we have a really good experienced police force to draw from. And in the assessing office, we have Dave Hines, who just joined us. And his background is so extensive in assessing and work for DRA at a higher level that we've never had anybody with this level of qualifications before. And Dave's a new addition. Audrey, our town administrator, the same thing. She's just extremely qualified, and her background for managing things is just exceptional for being in the corporate setting, and her skill set. And along now with Darlene McWhirter, who was administrative assistant, assistant town administrator, and I believe 5 years in Tamworth as a town administrator, is backing up the office. Barbara Savage is here doing a lot of other things. She brings a wide variety of skills to the office and being able to do office work for everybody. And of course, we have Deanna next door as our town clerk, tax collector, and Westy Crisser, who's been with her for a while. So the office is really well staffed. Our transfer station guys have all been there for a long time, except for Joe. He's worked out great. He's the newest individual there. Chief Burbank is still at the fire department. And as far as I know, they're out there answering calls. Their call volume is up high, greatly increased over last year. So as far as I know, we're in pretty good shape with the personnel. And what was the other part of that question, if I can ask you, Susan?
It was infrastructure, personnel.
Infrastructure. Well, Bailey Road wasn't identified originally when I got on the board. I identified that. So again, that's that grant process that we've already started, potential going forward on that. We're looking for $50,000 at town meeting to start putting money towards that implementation of putting a new concrete box culvert in there. Of that 50,000, 15 would be taxation. After that, I think the Snow Road Bridge project should come in well under budget, should leave us 90 or 100,000 to 100,000 in the bridge fund we could apply to this project. And I think anything additional of that, the majority would be able to come from the unassigned fund balance that I stated, that we're pretty healthy on that. And if anything, right now, early numbers would say maybe $25,000 additional from taxation. And we should be able to wrap that project up. Ballpark estimates is that's a $350,000 project, not including the first part of the $75,000 grant. After that, we are looking at the potential of tackling some of the other bridges. I have our engineer and bridge builders we're in discussions on what can be done with Granite Road Bridge. If this bridge goes in as planned, we think it's something we could replicate. And again, we think that we might be in a position to have a minimal tax effect to do that because of all the bugs and engineering and all, a lot of this stuff has already been resolved on this bridge. So we think it might be reachable, not next year, the year after. So maybe basically 2 years from now, Granite Road Bridge, if the voters wanted it, potentially could be done. And the year after that, Hutchins Pond Bridge, that could be done as well. So we're getting some rough plans together for those, and they look like they're doable. Other infrastructure, Pine River Road is going to be, well, after we finish Green Mountain Road is going to be taking a break a little this year, amassing some funds because the next stretch of road is more than we allocate for in a year. So we're going to do some smaller road projects around town this year. And then we'll hit next year, Green Mountain Road all the way down to Winter Road. And then it'll be one more year and we'll be off Green Mountain Road. Then we've got 2.5 miles of Pine River and roughly a mile of Elm Street. And that'll be the next focus. At least that's where I believe we're focused. I mean, anything can change and other board members can redirect those efforts, but that's where I see us going. So those are in the works. The only other culvert I think that remains outstanding that would need, that we haven't really made any plans for, but needs to be addressed would be Wilkinson Swamp. And that would be another box culvert, and it's not inexpensive, but that's a seasonal road. So we'll see what can be done. Other infrastructure, I'm not really sure that there's any other big ticket plans outside of just trying to keep up with our grading, culvert replacements. And we're looking at a device to be used for culvert cleanouts. I was talking to the board members today about meeting with our contractor and seeing if this looks like a viable piece of equipment to use so we don't have to replace culverts that are getting blocked up. If they're in good shape, we could just kind of clean them out. And this would be an effective way to do it and save some of that infrastructure.
I have a question.
Please.
We've invested a lot of money in roads and now bridges. As we're working on future projects, what are the selectmen considering in order to maintain these new roads and bridges that we have so that they don't fall apart before their time?
Yeah, great question. So with the bridges, the engineers are going to be providing us a maintenance plan. So certain things are pretty simple, like on Elm Street, will be just to clean out this time of year, to clean the bridges off of any sand and salt and keep them just essentially cleaned off that way. Given X amount of time, you are supposed to replace the expansion joint that we replaced recently. That was allowed to fail and stay in place for an extended period of time, which caused a lot of the salt damage and spalling, and potentially could have been the main reason for the cracking on the concrete abutment that holds up the bridge. And that was allowed to get to the steel underneath. It was that constant water running on there with salt. So if we take care of that seal and keep the buildup of dirt and debris off the deck of the bridge on Elm Street, for example, that would be it. We certainly have to continue doing more of that or be consistent with it on like Hunter's Bridge, that bridge, which is massive. So that's a long range plan that we're going to have entered into Bridge Aid. Bridge Aid hasn't opened up for applications since prior to us filing, and that will require a new application. I've been in touch with C.R. Willicke, who oversees that program with the state, every 6 months or so, I call them up and see where we are. So bridge maintenance is part of the plan. We do have an old expendable trust fund for bridge maintenance. It has gone unfunded for many a year. This year, you're going to see that on the warrant article again. It's going to be funded by unassigned fund balance, but we're reintroducing, putting money towards bridge maintenance in a trust fund. So that'll be established. And again, when the Snow Road Bridge is completed, we'll have a maintenance plan for that. So continuing with those bridges upkeep hasn't been a thing that's traditionally really been taking place as far as I know. So we'll be looking to do that. And roads, we crack seal what we can. We're so far behind on roads, the mile of roads, and what we can accomplish in a year. We're hoping that we're doing a better job of building them, a complete mile to a mile and a quarter at a time. With that, that's not just a base layer, do the top layer too, show the soup to nuts, get it all done so it holds up against heavy loads better and movement from the winter. Other than that, crack sealing is one of the bigger things that we can do around town. You may notice if you go down some of these roads that are just totally busted apart, there's no trace over the years of crack sealing. So that was a thing when you, after 3, 4, 5 years, you've got to be keeping up with the roads to some degree and have that maintenance to get longer life out of them. One of the other processes that we're involved in, and I brought this from my time at the planning board to when I went on to the Board of Selectmen, was we just couldn't get a capital improvement plan started or finished. So we had money for 15 years and we hadn't applied it. In 2018, we had a mission to get that brought to the selectmen and approved. And Chuck Fuller is an example. Another selectman, myself, worked with the planning board in a subcommittee, which is headed by Mr. Fuller's wife, Grace, as the capital improvements chairperson. And the planning board oversees all that. So we got a lot of people together on that. And we've got department heads, police, fire, involved. And we established our first capital improvement plan with, help from you with, the Lakes Region Planning, who helped us with that and guided us. So we're into year 2 on that program. COVID didn't make it easy, but the boards are looking for June or whenever we can really get back to working in person to plan for those projects. We take public input on that. We try to put a 10-year outreach on those goals so that people can weigh in and we can look at realistic numbers on trying to achieve those goals from budgeting. So hopefully that answers your question, Susan.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sure.
I'll go back to questions from the anonymous person. How is the tax rate determined, and what role do the selectmen play in setting the tax rate?
That is like a whole night. So I make a very condensed version on
in
that.
2 minutes. In 2
Yeah,
minutes,
really.
Mike.
There's just so much with assessing and value of the town that gets placed on that determines the tax rate. So there's basically 4 parts: state education, which goes right to the school, their budget. So that all gets set by their operating budgets, the county's operating budget, and lastly, the town of Effingham. That's the part we can actually manipulate to some degree. So those 4 components really are the main components that come together for a dollar amount. And that gets divided up against the town's tax rate. Not the town's tax rate, the value. So you divide the value of the town, which is 210 million and change, into that total amount of money. And that'll give you your final breakdown on what your tax rate is. So from the selectmen's end, we can, we have certain things that are called revenues that are driven, like auto registrations is our biggest one, that we project how much revenue we're going to get. Unfortunately, we've had some years recently that the boards were projecting a really, it wasn't a practical number and it wasn't being met. So we were artificially, well, a little before me, but 2018 too, we're artificially lowering the town's tax rate. So getting that to be a balanced number was step one. And that gets put in place with your taxation. So those are the two big offsets. And part of that gets made up by the governor's council, money we get from other places, meals and rooms tax, block grants. That makes up another portion. So when those revenues are, the higher they get, the lower the tax rate gets. So we try to balance that out and make a reasonable point. We can not really go over what we project. Like we can't project money we're not going to get and have that be a reasonable thing. So we have to be within reason, and that's how the tax rate gets set in kind of a 2 minutes or less.
Okay. People are being shy about using the chat box to ask questions, so I put it out there to you again. In the meantime, I will ask this question, and again, I don't know who this is from. Mike, in your 2018 election flyer, you stated this campaign pledge as a primary goal, quote, to bring transparent planning and bidding and smart budgeting to fix aging infrastructure. Do you feel this goal has been achieved, and why or why not?
Why it broke up there a little. So I think.
Do you basically, have you achieved this goal, and examples of how you have or not?
I believe we have. Some of the projects in the past weren't really very concise at town meeting. There wasn't presented as a whole plan, a whole package. We got to that point where that seemed to be what people wanted. So an example of that would be bringing in the Snow Road Bridge. I'll just use that as an example. We had a target amount that we wanted to fund from the town, $300,000. The bridge price went out, the bridge bid went out, we received bids. It was all through an engineering company. It was very transparent. There were addendums, on-site meetings that were made, and addendums came out of that. And all the people interested in the project got shared. We went to town meeting understanding that we had a price point. We understood that we had engineering costs and a concept of what those would be. And we asked the town for $300,000. Now the bridge and all of what it was engineering was going to be a much higher price. We needed to get that price back down to the $300,000 mark. So that was going to be a hurdle. And we had some inkling that that might be something that we could negotiate. But also I put out a town meeting, we were chasing this $250,000 grant, which was a game changer. And that just brought a higher level of engineering and structural, the structural engineering oversight. And we were able to stay with the bridge as we'd like to see it. So with that, though, we went to the town and we had a bridge builder who's built over 100 bridges. We had an engineering company that's well respected and known throughout the state working for us. And we had price points that we were able to meet. And it was all packaged up. We had a display showing what we were purchasing. We had pictures of the timber bridge. So people got to vote on that. And I think we've achieved that. So that would be an example. It's a little tougher with roads because there's variables that you can't nail down 100%. But I think there again, when we went for the next leg of Green Mountain, we had those split apart in 2 years for project wise, but we were able to condense that all into 1 year doing the overlay. And now we'll be doing that one solid mile and a quarter at a time, complete. And I think just putting that out there that it's complete and all of the parts that we're paying for it within that. Yeah, I think our projects are getting pretty transparent town meeting. I hope so. That's our goal.
Okay. Again, I don't know who this question is from. Mike, in your 2018 flyer, you said one of your goals to foster improved communication with town boards, commissions, committees, and residents. Do you feel this has been achieved?
All of the first ones, the last one's been tough. So with the boards, we don't go to the ZBA too often unless we see something that's coming up that the board needs, our board, the select board needs to be involved with. And that's kind of how that board works. It's very independent. The board of selectmen doesn't work with the ZBA. We're just we have standing as the town in every ZBA case. So we could go there as kind of a concerned party, a butter kind of thing. Other than that, in the past, I think our planning boards were attended by the Board of Selectmen representatives about 30 or 33% of the time on average. And I don't think I've missed 3 meetings representing the Board of Selectmen in the 3 years. So I think we're really well represented there. And it's the same with other boards. I think our selectmen in the roles they play are pretty attentive. I know Mr. Fuller, I don't believe Mr. Fuller has ever missed a budget committee meeting, for example, and he's been on there for a while. So we do reach out to them, other boards. We work really well with the budget committee. Most for the last 3 years, I think everything that we've presented that was really an operating budget or a warrant article by the selectmen has been a unanimous acceptance, a vote, which I don't think really is ever, I wasn't seeing that before. So the budget committee and the Board of Selectmen, it's really important that we work together, and they vet a lot of these projects you were talking about. What are you doing? How are you doing them? Is it a good decision? So we have pretty good discussions on that. The Conservation Commission, it was one of my goals to bring those folks back to the table. I didn't think they were being fully represented, and they play an important role in town with permitting for Department of Environmental Services. If you got a subdivision, culverts in town culverts, private culverts, different wetland permits, these folks play a very important role and need to sign off on these things. They have to sign off with the planning board on them. And they had a study with a whole bunch of experts, and a lot of people went out and worked on our culverts and our infrastructure around town. These are primarily water course culverts that, they're needed and they're important culverts. So that study, nobody took it to heart. As far as I could tell, it's been on the shelf until I showed up and asked for the top 10 on that list. So 9 of them were town culverts. 1 was on private land. We were able to fix 7 of them. 2 of them are on a road at High Watch that is so down deep that it would be really just problematic until we get back on that road to try and address those. But we got 7 of them done, and we've asked for another list of 10. We've been given that, and I have GPS coordinates that I need to go out and verify. And that's part of what we're going to be doing on the end of the month is checking the board is, and with like Ron Evans, our road contractor, identifying our projects for the year and focusing on those. So I think there's a lot of things that have been transparent. We've put Elm Street Bridge. That project, there was an idea to do something else with it, but it was really a structural issue. So we shifted to doing structural repairs. Some folks felt that that wasn't really right. Maybe the prevailing thoughts previously were correct. So we had engineers on that job site at milestone points, and they took pictures and wrote reports and was showing up to make sure that that project was being dealt with properly. And all of that was posted on the town's website. So transparency wise, we really are trying to show that these projects are being done in a certain way. The thing that I think we really struggle with in this town and always have is messaging. So with COVID, it was a real struggle. We wanted, and right in April of 2020, we wanted to get our own video audio equipment in. Prior to that, the gentleman who was in filming for an independent contractor had passed away, and we were being covered once in a great while, Blue Moon. So it was on our list to do. COVID hit. We tried to get something in place and live stream and get things out, but it turned out that our internet services were so bad here that we couldn't accomplish it. And that took a big upgrade from Consolidated Communications, which was researching vendors, contracts to go out, getting it signed. And then they had a terrible time, it seemed like months before they were actually able to fulfill their end with getting us a higher speed internet that would cover us. And then we find out that maybe our meeting, cameras and stuff aren't that great. I'm hearing mixed reviews. Some people say it's on the Zoom button, and you got to get your volume up and on your computer. And so I don't know what's going on out there. Some people say they can't hear it that well. I know the audio, the visual isn't the greatest. It's like we're a town away, we're little ants out there, but as long as they could hear the messaging, that would be fine. But I don't know how well YouTube is working because I'm told that the site isn't registering a lot of hits. I don't know how that is being calculated or counted and if everybody's being accounted for that goes on. So how much outreach through that is being actually making it to folks, I don't know. I know that the board members, Chuck, Tom, and myself, we get back and reach out to residents. We follow up on everything that we can. Certainly if some people get, very difficult to work with, we try to distance that and try to run through the meeting for those interactions. But COVID made it a real struggle because we're a small building and we have a staff here that's concerned about their well-being. But we have brought in all of our staff, transfer station, the whole office to try and get a balance in dealing with the COVID situation, fulfilling all the functions of the town office to make sure that the public is being serviced. So the shortfall is actually just being able to bring planning boards and ZBAs and select boards in to have the public in. That has been very difficult. And we're just we're hoping that June, we can open the doors, keep the staff safe, that they're going to be comfortable with the influx of people. Everybody's had a chance to be vaccinated, then, sky's the limit. And that's the position we hold at the moment. And we're looking forward to opening the doors. So that's the biggest regret is messaging and being able to have the people direct contact with the people. But we're not alone in that. I mean, a lot of towns are still closed, doing partial, they're servicing the public, but they don't have people coming in. We let them into the lobby to get business done. I think Troop E is closed. We're doing what we can and we're trying to keep people safe. Town meeting was another one. People, I don't think, understand that without having a tent available for March, we couldn't put people in the snow. We couldn't rent the tent because they won't rent you one in the cold. And by law, we need to have that additional polling place to service people who don't have face masks, and that people that work in our polls, there was a lot of folks that weren't comfortable with having the public in unmasked. So we're trying to make a balance for everybody. I get it that some people are adamant that they're not happy, but it's not about the one, it's about the many. So hopefully we're making responsible decisions.
Okay, I have a question in the chat box. This is from John. What was the total for Snow Road Bridge at last town meeting? As far as I knew, the bid came in at $377,000. If it was more than the 377, what changed? And did you put it out to bid again? And if not, why?
All right. So 377 was the bid, and 15 months from the point where that bid came in to the point where we signed the contract had elapsed. So the price of steel has gone through the roof, and $28,000 was attributed to the increase in material costs for steel. Putting it out to bid wouldn't do any good. We've been chasing this one for 5 years. The original plans for a bridge came in on average by $500,000. The price point we had was $160 at the time, we were told. $500,000 too much, couldn't do it, and the bridge had some deficiencies. That was brought that to the state engineers at Planning and Community Development Bridge Aid. The bridge we would have built had some violations of wetlands and different things, so that wasn't going to fly. We then went into trying to repair the culverts to see if we could get 10 years out of them and reach the point of bridge aid. While bridge aid program was failing, so that price point even came in too high to really practically go after the repair. So we had to scrap that plan. And from there, the point where we were going after this bridge was that with the USDA grant, the $300,000 would work, even though the bridge was a higher price. What people don't understand is there's a minimum price Effingham must pay for this bridge, because it's up to $250,000 with up to 55% of the project cost, up to $250,000. That's the USDA. So the bottom line is Effingham was going to pay $214,700. You can't go any lower. So with that, when this price increase hit, we did go up to, our price was going to be $243,000 is what the high end of this would be. It's still with the voters voted for at town meeting. The warrant article was for $300,000 for us, the Board of Selectmen, to bring this bridge to the town. So the taxpayers' dollars are not exceeding $300,000. This bridge, any additional things over the 377, we're going to be compensated for by whatever grants we could get. So with that, we have, because of dealing with the federal government, there's greater increases in engineering standards, engineering oversight can be asked for, and just not knowing what the engineering oversight cost would be because of the demands of the federal government. We didn't know what that was going to be. And this was a new program to the USDA. So they couldn't tell us at the outset what our engineering requirements were going to be. We worked with HEB to find a number where they said they could hold the line here. With that, we took their original number and added $25,500 to that engineering cost. That is potentially money that could be cut right off the bottom line of this when we're done. If that money was reduced and HEB didn't have additional requirements, the total money we would be paying would be $2,813 over our absolute minimum price. There's no way we can retain the grant if we don't build this particular bridge. And now you lose this bridge grant, then we're on the hook for full freight. And I've gone to 5 engineering companies, plus the bid processes we've been through, plus the state, and there's no $500,000 bridge, or that's the least you would pay. Our last bid cycle, G.W. Brooks put in a bid price of over $500,000, and that doesn't cover permitting and engineering either. So you're looking in excess of $600,000 in prices that were given almost 2 years ago. If we don't take advantage of this, we're just, quite frankly, town doesn't have the money to build a bridge on its own. So it's still the best solution. And I'll close with this on that bridge. The 2017 August bridge report showed that those 4 culverts collectively all have 60% section loss. They're structural parts of that bridge. The sufficiency rating of the bridge almost 4 years ago was at 44%. The sufficiency rating, the status is critical, listed as critical deficient. That was the status of this bridge almost 4 years ago. We're out of time. This is your access to the transfer station. Unfortunately, some people think that there won't be access for 2 months. The bridge project will go on. We'll have access to the transfer station throughout the project. We vetted this every which way. There's no better deal. It's a solid, good bridge. Federal highway and New Hampshire DOT approved this. It's fine. There's 3 engineering companies in this, USDA engineers, our engineers, and GM2 out of Concord, who represents Hanson Bridge. There's a lot of eyes on this. It's a good, solid bridge for the money. There's no way you can pass this up. And we are meeting our mandate to come in under $300,000, which was allocated at town meeting. And Susan, you know, that's a binding warrant article. It's a money article. So the letter of the law is if we're 300 bucks, 300,000 is what we've got. Unless we're breaking out over 300,000, we can't be in the wrong.
So what is the total cost of that bridge?
The
Grant
total
money, everything.
with everything right now, it's projected because we could see a decrease in the engineering cost. But the projections on it is $493,013.59.
Okay.
Taxpayers, $243.
So of the total, the taxpayers will be paying 243,000.
$243,013.59 with the potential of paying less.
Okay. Okay, so of all the questions I've received, I mean, there were some redundancies, so I'm not going to ask them twice. So I think I've run through all of the questions. Unless there are any more in the chat box, and I don't see more. We've been about an hour, and this is probably as good a time as any to wrap things up. I certainly hope that next year we're back to normal, having candidates night in person. And I would like to thank Deanna for organizing this. The race is one of the contested races. There are 2 other contested races. One is for library trustee, and one is for a 3-year term on the planning board. There are 3 people running for 2 seats on the planning board. So for the planning board, George Bull and Paul Potter and Mr. Garceau, David Garceau. Those 3 people are running for 2 seats on the planning board. Library trustee for 1 year, 2 people are running for 1 seat, and that's Ann Foley and Crystal Sawyer. So other than the select race, those are the only 2 other contested races. And others are running unopposed, or I think there's at least 1 write-in position as well. So check on that. Our town election is going to be held on May 11th at the school, and our town meeting will be held on Saturday, May 15th, and it'll be at the school parking lot outside. So that's
Weather permitting?
No.
Weather permitting?
Come on, we're hardy granite staters. We'll stand there in the rain if we have to, right?
Ooh,
Ooh.
I don't know. I think this is not going to help with messaging.
One problem at a time, Mike. One problem at a time.
So Susan, wouldn't it be a lovely time for you to put a pitch out there for alternates on our boards and filling any other vacancies that may exist?
Yep. That would be very good. To get a few more volunteers, that would be nice. It's a lot of time and effort, but it can be rewarding. You have to have the ability to take some criticism at times, but feel like you're doing good for the town. I don't see any other questions. And Mike, I'd like to thank you for your time and thank Audrey, our town administrator, for running the show in the background there. Again, thank Deanna for organizing this. And unless anybody has something else to say, I guess we'll call it a night and say good night.
Well, thank everybody for sending in the questions and asking them. It helps to get the word out. So thank you, Susan, for all you do.
And one other thing, so this is going to be on the YouTube channel. It's been recorded and will be put up on YouTube, is that right?
I believe that is practice. Audrey says yes. So,
Okay,
and
so stay tuned. All right, thanks again, everybody. Good night.